Hello, everybody, and welcome to our talk today about cage codes, Cyber DFARS, and CMMC challenges as they relate to medium and large companies. I'm Kelly McDermott, your host today, founder and director of Heinz Communications, a strategic marketing firm, and I also am a marketing consultant for KLC Consulting. With me today is Kyle Lai, president and CISO of KLC Consulting. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, very good.
Good. You ready to talk about cage codes?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very interesting topic.
Yes. Yeah. A lot to unpack.
Yes.
So, well, thanks for taking the time to talk about this. And more specifically, we're going to talk about how cage codes apply to medium to large size businesses and what they need to know, what the implications are of cage codes. By definition, cage code stands for commercial and government entity. And if your company wants to bid on government contracting jobs, you must have a cage code. Isn't that right, Kyle? Like you can't do business with the government unless you have a cage code.
That is correct. Yeah, you must have the cage code to do business, contract, or grants with the government.
Yeah.
Yeah, federal government specifically.
Right. So you can't really get out of the gate without one. And it would be a really good start to talk about what is a cage code? What is it?
Yeah. If you own a company or entity and want to do business with the federal government, you need to have the cage code. But before we start, what is the entity, right? Let's get that definition out of the way first. So in the business terms, an entity could be a person or department within your company or corporation or manufacturer organization, any groups that could do business, conduct business in the US could be doing business with the federal government. That's what we call the entity. And these entities, they can apply for cage code, right? So what is a cage code? If you are a US person, right, and you file tax return, the government is going to identify you based on your social security number. Right. If you're John Smith, there could be hundreds of thousands of John Smith. They won't know who you are, based on your name. So they give you a social security number. So in this case, government will assign you a cage code if you're doing business with them, and that will be how they identify who a contract are assigned to.
Kyle, so a cage code is unique to each business, or is it unique to each entity?
Each entity. So a company with multiple departments, they could have multiple cage codes. You could have multiple cage codes, depends on the business or the type of business that you do within the same company.
Got it. Great. So it seems to me the larger the company, the more complex this tends to be because there could be multiple cage codes, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So in today's world, for example, a large company is a company by definition of 250 employees with $10 million in revenue. That's considered a large company. Now, these companies grow and they become more profitable, and they tend to become more profitable by acquiring yet another company so that they can continue to expand. For example, if a company, say, manufactures aircraft to sell to the government, then they decide they want to acquire another company, which is a manufacturer for helicopter parts. This leads to many different lines of business here. How then it's like a hierarchy of businesses that now will need cage codes. So what are the implications when a company expands like this and now has a couple of different companies underneath its umbrella?
The goals for the DoD's DFARS and cybersecurity requirements is to protect the control unclassified information, the CUI, within the defense contractors network and system environments, right? So in a large company with multiple cage code entities, DoD still expects each cage code entity to meet the cybersecurity and DFAR requirements. So if you have a dozen or hundreds of cage codes, you should still find a way to consolidate these cage code entities into groups. So if they are sharing the same network or business processes, you can try to consolidate them into a group and assign a system security plan to that group. Yeah, you should then evaluate and see if it makes sense to create one system security plan for the group of cage codes, with the same business processes. To your example, the airplane and the helicopters, they are very different. There could be two different groups and two different system security plans, or SSP. But our goal, obviously, is to try to minimize the number of system security plans. When you're talking about NIST, they do have a system security plan development document talking about how you should develop the system security plan. But it does not get into how you should develop the system security plan based on the cage codes, although it doesn't really tell you too much about how do you separate your cage codes, how do you consolidate these cage codes, because these cage codes, they are not really discussed much within the industry, within the system security plan. The company contract management people, they understand the cage code very well, right? And they understand the hierarchy of the cage code. But when it comes to IT or cybersecurity groups, they know about IT, but they don't know about cage codes. So these two groups, they should talk to figure out how the cage codes should be organized. IT, they should understand how the cage code should be organized. And from the contract management group, they should understand there are some cybersecurity requirements. How do we minimize the requirements applied to these cage codes? Because each cage code need to have the system security plan. And if you have one system security plan can apply to as many cage codes as possible, that will be ideal for the company. That will save you time, money, and effort. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also want to point out that DFARS and cybersecurity requirements, CMMC rulemaking, they are still under development. When it's going to come out, we don't really know, but we know it's going to be sometime in the mid-2024. However, DFARS 252, 204, 7012, NIST 800, 171, these type of requirements, they're not changing. All the companies that have the defense contract today, they still need to comply with these requirements, and they need to develop the system security plan. So yeah, that's why it's important for you to understand the cage code, especially if you have multiple cage codes. How do you consolidate so you can have fewer system security plans that can apply to many cage codes?
You brought up a couple of really good points here, Kyle. One of them is the importance of communication within a company. So the IT department and the supply chain, making sure that the members in these groups are talking together to understand the process, how they need to comply. And the other thing too is to be efficient with this, right? Like grouping them together to maximize efficiency. You want to be really efficient with the way you're doing these groupings. And I think that's an important point to keep in mind.
Yep.
So the Cyber DFARS requirements for 7012 to protect CUI and 7020 to report to NIST 800, 171 self-assessment results to the SPRS are on the books. So let's just say, those are done, those are given. And those are not going away, to your point. Those are in place and those are going to stay. So if a company has multiple cage code entities, what are the steps involved?
You want to make a list so you understand how many cage code entities you have. So that is the very first thing that you have to find out. Okay. Right? And after you find out the cage codes, some of the cage codes, they might only do a very small amount of contracts with the DoD. Then you really want to understand how much money is each cage code making from DoD. And the reason is that you want to have that number so you can determine if you're going to go through that long-term commitment of Are we going to spend the money, invest more in cybersecurity requirements? Do you need to have that certification required by DoD, because that will be a different level? So for example, I'm only making $10,000 from DoD, spending $70,000 may not make sense for this particular cage code entity. So we have to understand the dollar value of the DoD contract for each of the cage code entity. Then also you want to group the DoD contract by the cage code, right? And understand which cage code or which business with a cage code are handling CUI control unclassified information. And you will be able to find this very clearly within your contract. If you have a CUI, then that means that within your contract, you have DFARS 252.204-7012. If you are handling federal contract information, that means you have FAR 52.204-21, right? And you also want to make sure...
That's easy for you to say.
Right. And also you might want to determine if you have some entities selling products, those commercially off-the-shelf products, you are not making any modification. If you can qualify as a COTS, commercially off-the-shelf product, COTS, COTS, then if you're a COTS vendor, then you are exempt from all these DFARS certifications requirements. So you want to explore that option as well. So these are some things that you can do at this time to see how you should proceed for the future, for the long term.
That's great. That's really helpful. Kyle, does it make sense for a company to determine first if they're COTS exempt or not?
Yes. For larger companies, it will be good to identify which cage code entities could possibly be exempt because they are selling COTS product. But when you are talking about COTS product, this cage code entity is selling commercial item, and you are selling it to DoD the same way as you are selling to the general public, general commercial, right, items.
Right.
And also, you cannot make any modification for DoD, and you should charge them about the same. Right. So if you meet all these are obviously a very high level qualification. But if you go through this high level qualification, the answer is yes. Yeah. To all these questions, maybe you have a chance to explore more and to see if the cage code entity actually sell the product that are qualified as COTS. It'll be great if you figure out that first, so you don't spend the time, money, effort if you're qualified.
Right. That's great advice. And the other thing that you said that I want to highlight is that you really have to assess the ROI with this. So you really need to consider, is there enough money in this to offset the cost of you making this commitment? And if it looks like you're going to have more contracts and you're going to open up, expand your business by doing this, then it would be worth it. But you do need to do that assessment first and figure out if if the value is there for you to go through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not cheap to go through all the cybersecurity certification requirements. So yeah, the earlier you know, the better.
And in addition to that, if you do go through this and you determine that, yes, this is the way we want to go, then you're opening up yourself to perhaps gaining more government contracts. When this initial review is all complete, what next?
You need to develop a system security plan for each of the cage code. So if you know how to group the cage code together, as mentioned earlier, then you can have one system security plan apply to different cage codes. So you can try to minimize the number of system security plans. If you can have one system security plan apply to all of your cage code entities, that would be ideal. It may not happen because remember, they have to be on the same network and same business processes. So if they are not on the same network, it will be hard to group them together and say, yeah, we have one system security plan applied to all these cage codes. So you want to take that into consideration as well. But just an example, if these cage codes all share the same IT services. So you have the central corporate IT that provides the email, provides the cloud services, provide the antivirus, for example. These are the IT controls that can be inherited to different system security planes. So there are still many things that we can do to minimize the work. And also just want to bring up, say, if you already comply with the other cybersecurity standards, for example, like ISO 27001 or CIS top 18, top 20, if you have other policies in place, cybersecurity policies in place, you will be able to inherit some of these policies if you already have the corporate cybersecurity policies, incident response plans. You can inherit these kind of plans and policies to minimize the work. Take whatever you can, and there might be additional things that you need to add to these policies or procedures or plans. Just add the additional things into this policy and make it a corporate policy. I think that will be fine. So that will be a way to minimize the work.
Okay. So it sounds to me like what you're talking about is IT vertical integration. Can you explain a little bit more, Kyle, shed some more light on IT vertical integration?
Right. There could be one IT group. You might have 100 different cage codes throughout 2 networks. But the way IT works, the procedures and the processes, the controls that IT implement, they are the same throughout different networks, throughout different cage codes. If IT documented how we do things, this is how we track the changes, how we protect the networks, how we add the new user, monitor the malware attacks, how we monitor the logs, how we determine and mitigate the risk. A lot of these controls, if they are in place and if they are the same for the IT controls, then we can apply them to different system security planes and we can apply to different cage codes. So in the way that we are trying to inherit these IT controls and try to apply them so we don't have to rewrite all these IT controls because they are the same. Why can we just inherit them and then reuse them?
Okay, thank you for further clarifying that. It's kind of like, it reminds me of a family tree where you have sort of the parents at the top of the family tree, if you will, and then you have the branches that lead out from that. And as long as everything is intact at the top, then all the other members, if you will, funnel up through that chain, that vertical chain, and they're regarded as okay, as safe, as compliant. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Simplistic way of looking at it, but
right. Yeah. If you can inherit the controls from different entities, or if there are shared common controls, policies, procedures, you can inherit. Try to do that in a large company because that will save you a lot of time.
That's great advice. So I see how there's an added layer of complexity here with medium to large size companies. And you want to get it right because, as you said, it's an investment of time, it's an investment of money, and you want to set yourself up to be in the best shape you can if you're going to go through this process. All right, so you've done the analysis. How does a large company then group the cage codes?
As mentioned earlier, that different cage codes handle federal contract information, FCI, or CUI, control and classify information, or they gone through the exemption, right, COTS exemption. So we want to group them based on the type of information. So if they are handling FCI, federal contract information, we identify them CMMC level 1 certification. If they are handling CUI, the control and classify information, then they have to go for CMMC level 2. And based on the certification that you're going for, if they are on the same network, then you can further group them together and create one system security plan, right? Okay. And for this group of cage code entities that handle CUI on the same network, similar processes, then we can group them separately and have the system security plan for that group.
Okay.
So, and as we mentioned, there are going to be some companies that are going for the DoD contracts. They are thinking about going for DoD contracts, but knowing the cost, they might just want to stay with CMMC level 1 certification. We don't want to touch any CUI contracts that handle CUI. We want to go with the DoD contracts, but only handle federal contract information at that level, because it's a lot easier for us to manage the controls, right? That's meeting CMMC level 1. CMMC level 1 is not really required to have the system security plan, but I would suggest to have the system security plan for CMMC level 1 as well, because at the end, when final rulemaking is done, CMMC level 1 will also require the senior executive, senior official sign off saying that, yeah, our company, CMMC level 1, we are meeting all the 17 controls. So, yeah, I will suggest creating the system security plan for level 1, level 2. And for COTS, if you are qualified as COTS vendor for some of the cage co entities, you can get an exemption, but you want to make a list of entities within different groups so you have an understanding into which contracts that could be impacted by the CMMC and which group they should be going for, and how you organize it so you can have the system security plan divide up and say this system security plan is for this group and system security plan number 2 is for that group. So you want to have that organization. You won't be able to validate if the groups are going to be organized correctly unless you've gone through the scoping and they've gone through the gap assessment and understand which networks are on the same network. Do they have the same business processes? So you need to go through the gap assessment, business process or evaluation before you can determine, yep, these are the groups that we are going to put together for this system security plan and have that validation. So there are some analysis need to be done. That's the process you have to go through.
Right. Well, you brought up a really good point about the fact that whether it's CMMC level 1 or CMMC level 2, eventually, when the new ruling comes out, you're going to need to do these things. So it seems to me that it makes sense to be doing them now and getting these controls and processes in place in advance of whatever that ruling might be in 2024.
Yes, absolutely. Whether CMMC rulemaking is going to be done on time or not, companies still need to meet the DFARS 252, 204, 7012. So the companies need to still do the cage code analysis and develop the system security plans for each of the cage code, because that is currently still the requirement.
All right. Thank you for that. That's important to know. Speaking of controls and cage code management, do cage codes expire?
Yes, cage code will expire 5 years from the date of the last update. So make sure you go into your SAM, that's a system for award management, SAM, SAM.gov, to update your cage code.
Okay. And can you talk to us a little bit about the cost associated with cage codes? How much does this cost?
Yeah, luckily, the cage code registration and maintenance is currently free. We don't know if it's going to be free forever, but at least for now, it is free. It's maintained by DoD, the Defense Logistics Agency, DLA.
Okay, that's awesome. You don't hear that too often.
Not these days, but we'll take whatever we have for now.
That's right. Well, I think this was a really insightful conversation, Kyle, about cage codes and large companies, medium to large companies. And it can be really complicated to navigate your way through unless you really understand what the implications are, particularly as you acquire new businesses and grow and want to expand. These are some really important things to keep in mind. as you mentioned earlier, KLC Consulting does help companies with this, and KLC provides the assessment and the blueprint, if you will, on how to become compliant and eventually win more contracts. So
Right.
reach out to us anytime with questions if you want to learn more. Please visit our website. And thank you, Kyle, for all of your expertise today on cage codes. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
Great. Thank you.